For the month of January, 2 burglaries. For the entertainment hours, Thursday through Sunday, 9 o'clock to 4, 0 burglaries. Zero robberies, 0 homicides, 0 sex offenses, and 0 vehicle thefts. So I don't know, again, it's hard to get below 0. We'll work at it. Either way, we will, but I want to cede my time. I'll answer any questions, happy to answer any questions. I'll stay after, because I have another meeting later tonight, but I want to share the floor with our officers here.
Hi, so I came, like I said, I'm the LGBTQ liaison for the department, and we are doing an event called Private Police, and it's going to be hosted at our District 3 station, which is on 22nd. I have some flyers, and I think it might also be in your packet. So I invite everybody to come. It's going to be the day before the Diversity Parade. So it's going to give everybody an opportunity to talk to our SIMU unit, who is the unit that is responsible for organizing the parade. And they're also responsible for the safety measures that are in place. So I encourage anybody who has questions or wants to have that time to be able to talk one-on-one with officers. It's just a great opportunity. Plus we'll have coffee, and it's at 9 a.m. If I can't get you the information, I'll get you the coffee. I'll have donuts too if you want. Thank you.
Any questions? That was quicker than I thought.
Does anybody want a flyer? Do they?
We do have it in our packet.
It's in the packet.
So the sergeant is also the sergeant for this area, as well as downtown, for day shift on this work cycle. And you guys all know Bridget as a light and officer for Ybor. And Jesse and Mario are liaison officers to downtown, but we have the ability to move them back and forth as needed for events or whatever. And they just decided to work together on a project.
Everything was pretty quiet for like night's parade and everything.
Well, that should be my question to you. How do I feel?
Night parade was awesome.
Yeah,
It's great.
I'm glad. I was out there all night, 3 in the morning, 3:30 in the morning. Obviously, get the bike rack set up, the street planning, it delays some of the activities. But the city did a really good job on getting the street cleaned up and getting the bike rack moved. So we can just transition into that Ybor night. We had significant number of officers there, probably about 30 more than we did last year, just because of things that happened in New Orleans. But we thought it was a good number. We had a lot of support from the sheriff's office, bikes, horses, DUI units that really helped us provide a greater presence. They've been fantastic partners. I've been here 18 years. I can't say that we've had a better relationship than we do now with the sheriff's office, because when I call, they're like, well, let me see what I can get you. I'm working on additional resources for spring break. And they're like, yeah, let me see what do you need? And then they start from there, what's the ask? And they have never said no. So they've been fantastic. Thank you.
Can I make one question or comment? I would say is in the East Ybor section, we were a little impacted by that because it's at the very end of the parade. So that area around 25th, 26th, 8th, and 9th, and it gets blocked off. But then so we have to deal with a lot of people trying to get to the end or get to 7, and they end up getting turned around. And so we get a lot of volume in that area.
Yeah.
But it was not. There were no real issues. It wasn't a lot of problems with folks later in the evening, but it's maybe something to look to in the future, with maybe just a little extra traffic control in the residential section.
Yeah, the challenge is not making excuses, but there's 90 plus floats in the
Yes.
parade. And we move from west to east. And at the same time, we're just pending, we're having people jump off floats, filter their cars. It's a very narrow area, as you know, like there's the numbers really one. When we stage them at 15 at Nucio 7, like there's 4 rows of floats. It's all coordinated, who goes in what order and everything. They do a fantastic job with that. Just like the limitations of the space we have to work with. I drove through East Ybor that night. There was a lot of parking on the street, but it was orderly. I didn't hear anybody yelling, shouting, or anything like that. I think it's just, you guys are just, East Ybor is just a byproduct of the overflow or the parking lots.
That's, and people don't realize there's not an outlet So they're coming through and then turning around and going back out of it. So there's just a lot of volume there, but like I said, like we said, it's not a lot of issue.
I appreciate that.
Is anyone from TPD going to provide a homeless liaison report today? I don't see Officer Reynolds here.
Yeah, so Officer House, she's not here today. We have a new liaison officer, Dario Perez, transferred to another unit, but Dan Kubota came from another district. We'll bring him to hopefully the next meeting. So you can put a face with a name, but they're out there and I know the numbers in Ybor itself are lower than they were in the past, but we're still working on that.
Any other questions for TPD? Thank you all for what you do, and you all appreciate it. Thank you. Mr. Lopez.
Unfortunately, I didn't get the reports that we usually send out. And the report that I did receive was the last, I believe it was the third, when they were out during the evening. But on my behalf, for me, approximately from the beginning of January to the day 120 inspections have occurred in the Ybor area that I cover. But as well, Mr. Cox is here. He's been handling the majority of the parking lot cases, security, the requirements that were enforced in the area. If you have any questions that regarding the parking lot issue, let's go to Cox. If there are any properties of concern that you'd like to talk about, have a whole computer and see what the status is, just to make generating where it is, what the status of this process.
I know last time you said that there were a handful of parking lots that were being fined, right, from code enforcement, and that was a new thing that had happened. And then it was coming up on the 6-month mark of where some of the parking lot had to be remediated, and if they weren't, then they would be fined. So where is this? What's the status of that?
So we had, there's the 2 parts to those cases. So there was the one back in July, as you talked about, that the 6-month deadline. Of that, there was 24 lots, I believe, that were in there, and 16 of them had to meet that requirement by February 6th. Of those 16, I believe there is 7 that were found in violation as of that date, and they're running a daily fine. Some of those are on the path to like 2234 East 7th, which is the big lot over here behind that new bar Saddlebags. They're in the process of the approval, but theirs is tied with the business. So because of that, it's going to take a little more time. It's not as simple as some of these other lots just getting that BLC approval. So there's 7 that remain. Some are on the path of it, some aren't. And compliance was achieved in this operation by either they shut down the lot or they did get the approval. So we have seen several of the lots shut down. For the security aspect, 45 of those lots were taken to a hearing, and somewhere around 30 were given an instant fine that, I would assume they would have paid by now. I don't have that data. What the big part of that is, we found a lot of violations. However, now that we have an adjudicated guilty, as of July or January, forget when in January, but any cases, 22nd, any cases going forward now will be a repeat violation. The fines range really from like $250 to $500 for the cases that were there. My personal feeling is that was a little low, but now with the, next time it'll be a repeat violator. So I think a lot of them, are playing ball at this point. I think there's maybe 1 or 2 lots still that will find a violation maybe once a month, depending on, somebody may be out or something like that. But for the most part, we've achieved compliance with the security guard as well.
I think that safety is really helpful. That's great. I'm glad that you're able to actually have those violations and make good with them, and hopefully that turns things around as far as the parking lot parties and safety of people. Another one thing that is a little concerning right now is all the development, all the construction. And then we're gonna be doing more bricking, right? So the businesses that are along Seventh Ave and also off of Seventh Ave, are trying to stay in business during all of this redevelopment, right? And it's going to be hard for them if their parking lots are being affected and changed, or if people are having to reroute to get to their businesses. So I know that there are some more A-frame signs up there, some more other things, and part of the thing that code enforcement does is, not allow A-frames or not allow signage outside of their business, but we, as a business, we need the ability to tell people that we're open, and to reroute people. So how do we go about working with code enforcement during like all of the construction that's happening in the next year and a half?
So generally, and I know it got talked about, by the powers that be in Tampa in the past about motions of allowing the A-frames in certain event districts. We've cut back on the A-frames quite a bit. We used to confiscate them. We would issue citations for them. Nowadays, basically what we do is if you have an A-frame sign, it needs to be against the building. You can't have it out near the road or anything like that. It needs to be out of the sidewalk, but if you have it right up against the building, we're allowing those A-frames. So, I mean, that's at least how we do it at night when we're operating with, in the, the nighttime shift.
Okay.
But, I don't know how he does it day to day, but that's the nighttime hours.
During the day, if I see them outside of the scope of where they're supposed to be, I'll go inside to the establishment, so you can have your A-frame sign, In actuality, throughout the city, they're not allowed. But within this district, we do it, it is allowed. If you have it up, against your business, then but if you continue to put it out past where, they're allowed for them to have it, then if you come back, it's probably, and you don't see it, it's probably gonna be confiscated.
Are there any special concessions that can be done for businesses when we're going through like the development along the bricking? And I mean, for us on our side of town, it's all the gasworks development.
Yeah, and they did a lot of temporary signage when they shut down 2 blocks of Seventh Avenue for the rebricking. They had the barricades up, but they also did a lot of temporary signage to direct traffic along the sidewalks to those businesses. So that'll happen again.
Yeah, we'll definitely do that
the next
again.
phase.
We have a business assistance signage program.
I think this is good that code enforcement is kind of like pump the brakes a little bit on the A-frame. They're illegal throughout the whole city. So to get that changed, it's city council and ordinance. I mean, you're welcome to write your city council members, see if we can get it changed. Brenda just mentioned having Vario approval for some kind of design standard, and there isn't one,
Don't have one.
but it's a temporary type of structure. So,
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Bailey.
Question, why are the parking lot A-frame signs not being enforced? They're all over the place and they sit out there basically 24/7. Sometimes they're chained to a light pole. They got sandbags on them. They never take them in. Why are those not being signed?
So in the right of way during the nighttime hours, if they're not during the right of way, generally we'll move them ourselves, back onto the property. If it's in the way of, if it's on their property, it's a code violation. We're not, at that time, like, we'll send him photos and they can be followed up on. But like I said, a lot of these businesses do allow them as long as it's, right at the footprint of your building.
I get the ones on restaurants at 7th Avenue. I'm talking about ones that are at parking lots that have been there for 3 years that have never moved. What's?
So in reality, we've stepped in and helped assisted historic preservation, with these projects. The code 27178 is a part, that's their code. It goes through their BLC approval and all that. So, if we were asked to step in and given that direction of, hey, go after these A-frame signs in the historic district, well, I'd be happy to do that at night. However, over the past year, how we've kind of softened in the historic district here, and some of the event districts elsewhere, with the A-frame signs. I think that's just kind of been a byproduct of that. Maybe they've just kind of been an oversight.
Just to underscore what I'm saying, like the restaurant that has their special down on a sandwich board on the sidewalk, 100%, I understand that, like, it, you know, they need,
Well, and
but for a parking lot who is not selling sandwiches and they just have their sign out in the right of way 365 days a year, that's a code violation.
yeah, and so I also, I would be curious to know with the part of the VLC approval when they submitted the package for these parking lots. I don't know if those, I would imagine they're not, but if those A-frame signs were approved in that, because all your signage did have to be approved on those, in that VLC approval. So, I'll definitely get with Alan on that and see whether or not those were permitted by them. And if they weren't permitted, we can go ahead and start looking into that. I do know that Alan is working on, cases that were, or some of these VLC approvals that were given, but not all the information was there, like their security plan has lapsed. He has started issuing notice of violations for those cases to resubmit their new security plans for this next
You're referring to Alan Beeler.
calendar year.
Thank you.
So the parking lots, if the A-frames are within their parking structure, within their guidelines, then that's fine. That we're going.
That's how the 19s have treated it is, yeah, if it's in the right of way, we'll move it, move back on the property, leave it there. I mean, we do have illegal signage cases where we can tell them to take it down. But, that's something we've, like I said, pump the brakes on. And the reality is, saying you can't have them on 7, or you can have them on 7, there's plenty of lots that have them on 7. So now we're gonna be picking and choosing what parking lots we're going after for the signage. So I think there's a little bit of it would be hard to justify going after the parking lots on 4th, but then allowing all these A-frame signs on 7. You know what I mean?
So her challenge is she's got a special case, right? Like her business is where all the road closed signs are around 5th Avenue and 12th Street, where it's turning where they're building gasworks. And so some kind of temporary signage to help her customers find her business, I think is what she's primarily interested in.
Zoning does have permits. Every sign in the city has to be permitted. So zoning does allow for permits, and I think they're a little easier than, a structural sign. It should be much easier to get a banner sign or something to put up for 30 or 60 days. And, I guarantee you'll be able to, as long as you stay on top of it, renew that license. The biggest thing is not letting those become, like tattered flags or whatever it is. Just trying to keep them nice. And, if you had those up and you had the approval with zoning and VLC, then I don't imagine, we wouldn't have anything to do with that. We couldn't touch you if it was approved by those two entities.
Brittany, I think Picker Place has a sign on 15th. Like if you're going south on 15th before 2nd.
We now have a sign.
Okay.
That will help with trucks delivering material, but it's not gonna help with parking.
Chair, I have a quick question. I had a question, you asked about some others. I didn't know what the status of the lot that is on the northeast corner of 8th Avenue and 22nd Street North is. It's grass still.
In between, the other big parking lot in Rosenheim.
Yes.
So,
Because there's a lot of commercial transport vehicles like rental buses that have been parking there recently.
okay, so, the case for that lot, when they came in, they said it's not a lot. We made them take off, and I fought back on that because they still had a sign and the app was still approving payment. So we made them take all those signs off, so it's not a paid parking lot now, at least it was closed out at that time, whether it is, I haven't worked in the last 3 weeks on the night shift, but, so that case was closed. If there's still parking vehicles there, that would be a use issue, and I'm sure that the owners of it, which is Evolution, I'm sure that they don't, they're not approving that. Because if they were, I mean, maybe they're paying them on the table, I don't know, but I'm sure they would want to figure out how to make money on it if they knew that that was going on. If it is, you know, if there is a lot more parking there and things of that nature, feel free to let us know and we'll make, I mean, I'll put it on my list to go check, this, you know. Yeah, I think we have people working this weekend. I'll have them go check that.
I haven't seen it as much recently. I think it was during our peak tourism with Gasparilla.
Okay,
We were
yeah.
seeing those, whether they were associated with the restaurants or.
And is it just in the nighttime hours or is
It's
it?
in, it was just.
Okay, so it's not like they're storing in there. Okay. No worries.
Anything else? And, digitally, when we got the email for this meeting, there was a spreadsheet that listed all the cases that went through the magistrate and the results and the fines. That's not in our printed packet, but it's in the preliminary email that came out. So I thought that was a nice, format to see the progress of all those cases and what's happening with that. So.
And we do have, I believe, 12 more, going to hearing tomorrow. Some of them were continued. I don't know if it was the parking lot security or the approval.
Security.
Security. So 12 of those were continued and those are continued till tomorrow. So we're gonna wrap it up tomorrow.
Okay,
Thank you.
great. Thank you, guys. Okay, another Renee.
All right, yes.
Evening, everybody. So I'll start with our clean team. For our trash bag collection, we had an increase of 56%, which is really, really great. And that's not only what you would find in a trash can or something like that. That's also like leaf material, debris, things like that. And then the other stat that we see a very big increase in is infrastructure clean, which is just general cleaning of our common areas. And that's a joint effort between our clean team staff and our safety staff who's actively walking around on 7th Avenue. So we like to see that, we like to keep our streets as clean as possible, and we all make sure that we all have to do our part in that. And then moving over to the safety team. So we have some homelessness related stats that we can kind of report out on. So we had an increase on the visibility that we saw, the amount of individuals that were just walking around in general, which was 23.5%. But then, and then the panhandling that we observed was also higher. I think that's just more of training, making sure that our staff knows how to recognize it a little bit better and making sure that we're documenting actually what we're seeing. But then we see decreases of non-compliances or issues where we need to speak to people about problematic things. So where we say something where they're being non-compliant with an issue, we saw an 84% decrease. And again, that's with retaining staff, having a general command that's always the same. They don't differ from what our message is. And we're making sure that we're trying our best, because all we can do is have a conversation. We're not an enforcement agency or anything like that. We have a conversation trying to give them information so they can make the best decisions for themselves. And it is effective in this case. And then also our welfare checks decreased by 20.5%, which is good. So no issues there for us. I'm very happy with those numbers moving forward into this year. And that's all that I have. Event wise, we were very good. Everything has been going great for us. Very good with scheduling, getting everything plotted out. The communication has been really, really good. And then we can adjust our deployment effectively depending on whatever's taking place within Ybor City or just outside of the city, that we might have some flow over into our area. We want to make sure that everything's handled.
Any questions for Block? Thank you, guys. Thank you for all your efforts.
Thank you.
Okay, and we'll move into special presentations with the part and city table mobility, Mr. English. You guys want
You've got to click on.
to presentation? You also have a printed copy of the presentation back here.
Be here, see you all again. I was in a resident here from I am the chairman of the Freedom Board. We have some plenty of chiefs this year, you have to wear up. And I have Justin Willis and here to make a presentation about what our problem is and how we need your help. Okay.
English was gonna do this, but I'll present on behalf of Tampa Historic Streetcar friends, so I'll do it. So just a little, we're gonna go through this, the general outline here is the governance structure, go through the background, current financial situation, some of the public input will be covered by Donnie. And then we'll talk about the FDOT grant subsidy and where we're at financially, and then the request for funding, continued funding. Just so you know, the Tampa Historic Streetcar, THS is the board that governs the streetcar, right? It's basically a creation of the city of Tampa in part 25 years ago. So HART is the operator. So we're kind of the subject matter experts. We operate the streetcar, and the city of Tampa is technically the owner. And then the THS board is kind of the overseer that works between HART and the city of Tampa. For a bunch of reasons, 25 years ago, we can't really figure out, but that's how it is. So in October 2018, we discontinued the fares on the streetcar, an FDOT grant with some local matching contributions, CRAs and other sources in the city, got us to boost the service, add more span, and it's grown into the service we all love and appreciate today. In August 2024, THS approved the budget. This was the first year without that $700,000 state match. The state originally wanted to do 3 years. COVID happened, and then they extended that grant, and then they added another grant, and then they said, we are done. You all need to figure this out. So we've been trying to figure this out for over a year. That's part of why we're here. Ship is up big time. We all know that. I think we're approaching 1.3, 1.4 million trips this year. It's as popular as our best bus routes. It's gangbusters, and we absolutely love it. The current funding support for this from the CRAs, you can see here for Ybor, is 188 and 37. Channel District, the CRAs, we're also going to be reaching out to them for this same conversation. So I'm going to move it along here. So I know you've seen most of this before, so I don't want to belabor anything. I'm going to pass it off to Donnie to talk about public input. One of the things we've had to do is prepare for putting a fare back of this budget shortfall. The only ability HART has to manage our costs or generate revenue is to reduce service or add a fare. And we've been trying to work with the city for over a year to avoid that. And that's part of why we're here today, is to address that budget shortfall that was approved by THS and has not really been filled appropriately. But we want to keep it fair and free and frequent. And part of the reason we went to public input is because of a federal requirement related to transit agencies. The Federal Transit Administration requires you as part of Title VI to assess the impacts out of the riders and do all of these, check all these boxes for federal requirements. So we just want to talk a little bit about that input before we present the recommendation.
Yeah, so we did this process in November where we went out, it was actually just for a week where we went out at streetcar stations, we promoted it online, social media, we even accepted mail, letters, emails, whatever it was, as long as people wanted to submit feedback. Our main source was we created this survey online through our main customer service portal for everyday riders that were familiar with the process. So during that week, we got a lot of really interesting feedback. Just a bit more background, we did promote the survey in a lot of different ways. It got a lot of great media coverage because of our press release. So for the most part, it really got blasted out there to make sure that anyone that wanted to comment was at least aware of the opportunity. So in just this 1 week that we were receiving feedback, we had a huge overwhelming response of over 500 comments. And the majority of those comments were against adding a fare back to the streetcar for a number of reasons. The main feedback, they said that if there was a fare added back, that they would choose not to ride and that they would believe that a fare would prohibit other people from being able to ride. Of course, money is one reason that inflation was large and it still is largely on people's minds. So another added cost to your wallet would prohibit someone from wanting to do this streetcar ride. They also said that a fare in general was a bit unjustified or didn't feel fair for the streetcar, because again, it's only less than 3 miles. So people just didn't think that spending their previous fare of $2.50 was worth it just for that short distance. So that led to other people's concerns that if there was a fare added back, less people were riding the streetcar, that would lead to other effects. One of those was that it reduced the amount of economic dollars that are coming into Ybor, to Channelside, to downtown, that people would choose not to ride the streetcar, thus not spending their discretionary money in this whole urban core area. They're also concerned about if people aren't riding the streetcar when they are here, that how much traffic that's going to add back onto the road. As it was mentioned, the streetcar started having free fares in 2018, and a lot has changed in the entire urban core. There's a lot more apartments here in Ybor. Water Street is vastly different. So if you try to take away a lot of that previous ridership that we had, trying to go back to 2018 traffic, a lot of people would think is unimaginable. And also because many of these people who are living in the urban core or riding the streetcar are interested in future development, they were also concerned about how a reduction of ridership would impact future plans for any extension like up to Tampa Heights and in the future. So a couple other fun information that we got from this survey and feedback. One of the things we asked was like if there was a fare, what did they think was reasonable? For the most part, people said $1, which that'll tie into some projections that we have here coming up in a minute. We also asked where they were coming from, either that day or just in general for the streetcar. And the results here show that for the most part, this wasn't just tourists responding who were just looking for something free to do and didn't want their free thing to go away. The majority of these respondents are people living or working in the downtown core, in downtown, in Channelside, in Ybor, or coming from the Tampa and greater area. They're coming from South Tampa, they're coming from Brandon, they're coming from St. Pete, they're coming from other parts of Florida, coming into our whole area looking for something to do. But for the most part, this wasn't just tourists looking for something fun. This are primarily our urban core people who live and work in downtown, trying to voice their support for how much they love the streetcar and don't want it to have fare. Then some other fun information that we had. So we also asked them, again, during that day, how they either use that ride. So this gives the answers for how do they actually use the streetcar. And it really gave us a great diversity of how people are using the streetcar again. So we're not leaning on maybe one voice that's the loudest. It really gave us a nice average across the board. So that first chunk of people are people who are choosing to ride the streetcar. They're choosing to ride it because they want to avoid traffic. They're trying to have other parking options. If they're going out at night, they want to make sure they have a safe option to get back home so that they're not driving on the roads. That other chunk of people are people that are coming and spending dollars in our whole neighborhood. They're coming to the local businesses. They're having lunch and dinner here. They're coming to attend events. They're coming to spend money at all of our attractions, all by using the streetcar. They're shopping here as well. And then another big chunk of the people using the streetcar every day are people that are the living and working people here. They're coming, they're going to work, they're going to get groceries, they're going to the gym. A lot of people, USF is here now, so there's a lot of students in the area as well. And then that last chunk is that tourist group. So this was, again, about 350 people that responded. But compared to, we had about 280,000 rides a year prior to the free fares. Now we're at 1.3 million rides. So that's about 1 million more riders in a year just because it's free. And I would say that these numbers are pretty fair, accurate representation of every single day, how people are using the streetcar every single day. Thanks for your time, and I'll hand it back over to Jeff.
Thanks. So this really just kind of shows what the scenarios we were contemplating in the absence of a fully funded as approved THS budget. And without getting into the details, what this basically says in a nutshell is we can't add a fare back that would make up the deficit in the budget that we need to fill. So because the ridership would decline commensurate with whatever the fare level would be, there would still be a hole in the budget at the end of the day. And that's why, we've got to find more funding through the city, and the city needs to really figure out their long-term plan for funding the streetcar, but that's why we're here today. So to avoid this scenario, we're hoping that you and downtown and Channel District CRAs will step up. We've got some commitments from the city to reevaluate the special assessment. There's a lot of detail buried in that special assessment that funds the streetcar that it's not really been adequate to fund the level of service we've all come to enjoy. So if you have any questions on this slide, I'm happy to answer them, but I don't want to drill down into the weeds with you. Basically, it says if you had a $1 fare, ridership would stay really high, but you'd still have a budget deficit. If you added a $2.50 fare back again, ridership would drop tremendously, and therefore you wouldn't generate that much revenue. It's an elasticity analysis we did, and I will try not to say the word.
One question about that though.
Sure.
When you're saying keep the same levels, would that be the 12 minutes on weekends as well, or going back to 15-minute increments?
It would less than 15.
Oh,
Yeah. So for operational issues, we're reevaluating the 12-minute service anyway.
it's confusing. You got to keep two timetables in your head.
Yeah. But that's more of That's a detailed operational thing, but we're talking about less than 15-minute frequency.
Okay.
We're talking about those types of systems. So the THS, and I gotta be clear here, I'm speaking for Michael and THS, but this is a request from THS. This is not a request from Park. They're requesting additional funding from the following CRAs to support maintaining the fare-free service, fare-free frequent service.
On the fare free and that chart, let's go back because it's probably the talking point that we have to
Yeah.
address most. No, not that one.
The ask.
This one. Sorry.
This is the ask.
Are you guys done with your presentation? Now we can open up for questions, but.
That's
Thank you.
Okay, no. So fare free service, is that still the 15-minute interval? The total of this is 800K.
Correct.
And you're saying that the budget hole is 700K. So I'm assuming that we're not changing the level of service.
that's right.
So just a quick math question. You said the budget hole was 700K. Why is this 800K? Total of those numbers is 800.
I think
My math could be
34.
wrong.
It's 233 times 3.
233.
One's 234.
So, okay, so
Yeah,
it's
700,000.
Cool. So it is my bad.
No, but don't.
I checked the math. I thought-
So, okay, so it's the 700K total to keep it as basically the same level of service. Rate. Thank you.
Is it the first page plus that? Is the 188 from CRA 1 plus 196? Or is it instead of 188, it's 196?
It's an addition.
Maybe
It's an additional, this is an additional ask.
Okay, so it's 188 plus 196, and then in CRA 2, it's 37 plus 38.
That's right. So the total is 384K and 75K. Again, unless my math is pretty
Well.
well.
And what is this bot? What does this get us? Is it free fares through the end of the year, fiscal
Yeah,
year,
it's-
1 year
it's
from
this
now?
whole fiscal year through our fiscal is September.
Through September, so this gets us like eight months of non-fare. But can you go back to the other slide?
Sorry, but
Can you go back to the other slide? Well, my question is like, when you charge a fare of $1, like the second row, but you're only getting an average fare of 42 cents, why is there half the value, less than half?
So what we have something called fare capping, if you're familiar with that term, but basically we only charge you a certain amount and cap that, and you can ride as much as you want for the rest of the day. So if it was $1 fare, we assume the fare would be capped at $2, and most people take more than 2 trips in a day. So that's why you only see a 42-cent return on $1 fare. So for the bus, for example, we have a $2 fare. We only have 78 cents we collect per trip because people take on average 3.5 trips.
So for purposes of clarification, previously we were paying 230, giving 234, and now you're asking for 459?
Yeah.
And the percentage allocation per CRA district happened because just to throw Channel District under the bus, I mean, they've got more money than God, so
Yeah.
why are we paying a similar amount of these?
That's just, we came to that, with basically available resources and reasonableness with CRA staff. And
No, it was just split 3 ways. It goes through 3 districts. We can spend the money within the district. So that's how it was split. And then with Ybor, it's an 80-20 split between Ybor 1 and Ybor 2. So, that's how it's been with the other support you've been giving. And just so y'all know, we do have money to afford this. If you decide to do it, it would come out of district improvements. There's another thing that's in your budget, and I should bring attention to it. We put in $100,000 for Hart bus stops. As talking with staff, they would defer that request to a later date. So in other words, we would only really be reappropriate that $100,000 for this line item. So you're only really giving an additional $96,000 in Ybor 1.
yeah,
If that makes sense.
yeah, we basically said that we'll defer those requests for bus stops. So we would be back next year to talk about that with you all to make sure that we do our part, to try to help city fund THS.
Follow-up question on something, a concept that I mentioned last time you guys were here, and I'll preface this by, I'm a huge streetcar fan. Like, it happens over long as you guys have been open. Just having a simple streetcar tip jar, hashtag streetcar tip jar. There are tons of, Stripe accepts donations by QR code. There's tons of avenues to accept those monies, even if it was just $20,000 over the course of a fiscal year. That's real money. And there's a lot of people who ride the streetcar that have a great night and they just might hit that QR code and get the streetcar tip.
I have championed this internally, and I would encourage you to go to the THS board and navigate it during public comment.
After I buy streetcartipjar.com.
Building on David's point, I always see towards you talking about the motor, that how much
Yeah.
they're willing to pay,
So,
you know.
so
It's us locals who cheat. The tourists wouldn't pay.
just a question. I mean, with the direction that we've been given to focus on capital improvement, where does this sit in terms of like legality? Like for us funding a streetcar versus using that money for some kind of capital improvement? Like I hate to say it, like a bus stop, which is actual.
Actual infrastructure.
Actual.
Or the
infrastructure.
park, or the
Or the
park.
park,
Yeah.
right, so
Been on the dock.
just not that I'm
So-
against this, because I love the streetcar
Yeah.
too, I'm all for it, but I'm concerned that this is a blurry area that's gonna get us in trouble, especially if we double the amount we're spending on it.
Great question. Couple things in order to spend tip dollars in your district, it has to be in the plan, which this is. It has to
Okay.
be in your budget, which it is, and it's consistent with the statute. So it is a service. We also fund the YES team. We do other things that are services. We have been funding the streetcar, not 100%.
And we've
for all
never had
these
any
years.
kind of trouble with
No.
that, okay.
No, and again, this is going towards a fare free program. It's kind of targeted. So question is, we either go to fairs or we don't, and it sounds like from the community response in the survey, it's favor to stay fare free.
What type of advertising does this get the Ybor City Tampa CRA on? the street?
Well, that's a great
Well, they already
question.
have Tampa CRA
So,
logo on there.
Back in the day, we did have some remnant spaces that were in the streetcar. They would offer those spaces up for Ybor CRA at the time, for the Fresh Market, for things like that. I think maybe we could talk about that remnant space.
I mean, or
Some
just say that it's
promotions.
paid for by these 3 CRA districts.
Well, so this image up on the screen is.
That's
already-
it, yeah,
Yes.
you have them.
I mean, it says Tampa CRA, but not all of Tampa CRAs can
Well, Tampa CRA, Ybor's part of Tampa CRA.
I understand that, but they're not asking for all of Tampa CRA to contribute to the streetcar.
That's a good point. Yes, those three districts, yes.
Or-
Saying
I say this tongue in cheek, but I think if we were to approve this, they should eliminate the stops over by the port. That's a sore subject for me. The port has never contributed a darn penny to this damn thing, and it just bugs the heck out of me that they don't pay anything and we pay all these monies and they get the benefit of all this. And they're rolling in dough like somebody was referencing earlier. It really is just something. And every time we've tried to bring it up to the board, they're like falls on deaf ears.
One of our new board members is a port employee, so we're hoping that there may be some daylight there, but I am not promising.
Yeah.
So next, we trying to limit this. We're gonna be discussing it and making our recommendation that's gonna go back to the CRA board for final approval. So they're looking for a CAC recommendation on this. We're not the ultimate ones that fund this. I do have a question. So this covers us through September, October, whatever the fiscal year. It's kind of a stopgap measure. What's the plan to get this fully funded? What are you, I mean, there's
I'll
gotta be
refer to
something.
the city representative who is not here today. But what we've been told by the city is that they are going to look at the special assessment. One of the issues with the special assessment is that it has never been increased, and there are exemptions, and a lot of you as homeowners probably know this, but homesteaded properties are exempt. So 25 years ago, when this was created, that was probably about 5 or 10% of the properties in the boundary were residential, and now we're exempted for whatever reason. I'm not an expert on the special assessment, but what I do know is right now, 42% of the properties in the boundary are exempted. So that's a lot of new residential in Channelside. So that's something the city needs to look into. Outside of that, though, the city needs to budget for it in their regular budget process so that they don't have to come ask you for money each year and put me in this weird position where I'm asking for THS, who's asking for the city, who didn't budget appropriately.
That's not exactly true, but go ahead and finish your thought.
Well, I'm sorry, please, you can correct me, but
Look, this has been going on a long time. The streetcar system was struggling. People didn't like paying the fare, our ridership was low. And when the state offered us a grant for 3 years, the rule was it had to be free. You had to go back to 15-minute headways, 20 minutes were driving people completely crazy. Full morning hours, full evening hours, extend later on weekends. And we did that, and ridership has gone up by almost 1 million people. Everybody loves it. It's become iconic, but it's not a cheap system, frankly, to run. Hart this year decided to apply some overhead cost to our budget, which we haven't discussed and don't need to today. But the bottom line is that the city is financially responsible for the streetcar system, not Hart. Hart operates under contract to the city. Our board kind of mediates between the city and Hart. So here we are today. The grant ran out, the extra money ran out, and so we're really looking to cover the $700,000 this year. The city is, I met with the mayor, we talked about the port, by the way. Takes a deep breath and says that she'll work on it.
Yeah, she said that 2 years ago.
I know, and she's in a tough spot, and there's gotta be a way, because it's completely inappropriate that they're not paying their share. It's legally and totally inappropriate. I know it. We've talked about it off and on for years, and you all have been the most vocal, and I appreciate that. But where we are today is we need to cover this deficit and need your support. We will be back for more money because the CRA system plays a big role. But we're going to look for other ways. The special assessment district, Justin's correct. I started the special assessment district and with David Mechanic, and there were people living in Ybor. There was nobody living in downtown or jail district, but there were people living in Ybor and they objected. So we exempted residential. Well, guess what? You know how many thousands of people live in downtown and jail district and Ybor City now who weren't here 24 years ago? A bunch. So we are looking at changing the special assessment district to include homesteaded residential. People who rent are already paying because those are commercial buildings. We're also looking at increasing it, but people don't like to pay more taxes. People are going to be happy here about being assessed if they have a homestead property. Yes.
Hi. My name is Roberto Torres. I moved here in 2006, and I remember that it was free back. Maybe?
Sorry?
In 2006?
No.
It wasn't free?
It didn't become free until 6 years ago.
Got it. Maybe I had too many beers and Bennigan back then.
Yeah.
Maybe there's an opportunity to fund this, because it seems like nobody wants to pay it, but we definitely benefit from it. Perhaps visit Tampa Bay under the bed tax, and perhaps try to figure out how to make it or put it on their budget.
I think that's
as a marketing line item for transportation.
I think that's a great idea. I'm meeting with other members of the Hart staff. We're going to call on some of the institutions like Visit Tampa Bay to look for financial contributions in the next budget.
Yeah, because we can make an argument for people that stay in hotels in downtown, even a 50% occupancy, that they're the ones that kind of benefit from it. And like everything else here, that we benefit from it, but we let tourists pay. So maybe that is one. I mean, otherwise we gotta lock in the mayor and wait for the board, lock in the room until they figure out who's gonna pay for it.
Right. Well,
Sorry.
transit, everything's expensive and transit is expensive. The streetcar happens to be a really wonderful thing, but
Now, by the numbers, what Rich was talking about, if this is gonna get us to September 30th, 1.3 million divided by 4 times 3 is 975. When we're getting almost 900, that's $1 per. That's a good subsidy. When equally split between all three CRAs. But if we're not just funded for until September 30th, then we'll say, okay, for this year and next year, but we gotta definitely find a solution by September of 26. And then try to figure out, we come up with like a A, B, and C list of.
They need a solution by September of 2025.
25.
Because this is a stopgap that covers
Correct,
us for a few months, but let me interrupt and say, what's the projected gap next year if no alternate funding?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
We'll cross that bridge when we come to it.
So we gotta make a decision on both, otherwise we're gonna be here in November, October 1st of this year.
Well, they will be coming back. They always come back in July anyway for the 2026 budget.
Yeah.
So we're still talking within 2025 right now. So if that's a great point, this will be revisited.
So this might not be popular in this room because we're guardians of CRA money, but I think this is an expense that CRA should pay for.
Absolutely.
And the reason that I say that is because CRA is funded by the same tax dollars that everybody else in Tampa pays, but we hold back a percentage specific to our area. This streetcar system runs specifically through these three CRAs, and of course, the port, and we can talk about that and add about it as well. And the rest of the city of Tampa does not see the benefit and should not be paying for it. So in my mind, this is an appropriate vehicle to fund this.
Agreed.
And so, because, it's all coming from the same tax pot. These just happen to be set aside specifically for this district, specifically for the districts that benefit. And so I think this is an appropriate request, and I would make a motion that we recommend to the CRA board that we fund this at this level for this fiscal year, which would be a total of 459K.
I second it.
Well, we don't need that motion for the full amount, because that's already approved from budget. This is an additional ask of
No, that's full.
196.
196 plus 38 is
234.
230. Sorry.
It's the end of the day on a Tuesday, I mean.
The total amount that we're funding them for this year will be 496, including this amount. So that if we include what we've already funded, that's the total we're looking at.
And I asked, you're in the middle of a motion here. I asked Brenda, it's like, hey, can we use some of the affordable housing money? And that's still like no, we can't touch that yet. I think everyone's looking for an opportunity there, but this will come out of, they delay the new bus stops for Hart. So we'll move that money back into this. So really, we're just finding some additional money.
And district improvements.
District improvements.
So we have the money. I think it's an appropriate use.
I assume that the city council would want to approve this anyway.
I think they
I
probably.
don't think they're gonna think twice about it. So that's what I'm trying to say, is that we probably shouldn't waste any more time on it.
It'll be a different horse when they ask for that special assessment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can bet your bottom.
But I think that's something that. does need-
Oh, you seconded? Oh, thank you.
Okay, so,
Sorry.
any other discussion to kind of summarize? I would like to make a focal point that, the special assessment should be considered to get rid of target homesteaded properties, and city council should find a way to find funding sources for this. Talk to the fort a little bit too.
It's a great question of why the city ain't here, Good Lord.
Yeah. Any other discussion? All in favor of said motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
I want to thank you all, and I will see you in about 6 months.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
You still-
We got it. Yep, we got a quorum. Oh, where's the clicker?
Oh, yeah, don't. Great. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Right. So next special
In
presentation,
your
Seventh
packet.
Avenue intersection.
So there's not a PowerPoint?
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm just kind of speaking to this point, no formal presentation, but, again, my name is Nick Bennett. I am a project coordinator on the project management, or under the project management division that supplies the project update reports to you on a monthly basis. I think we met last month for the first time, so just happy to be back. So what I wanted to present to you today is the survey and design cost for the intersections of Seventh Avenue resurfacing and rebricking. A little bit of context, as you know, we have a project underway in its second phase for the 17th to 19th segments of 7. Back in August, we had finished the 15th to 17th segment. And in conversations with mobility and in conversations with a mobility consultant that we have on board, we realized that the project currently is not scoped to cover the intersection. The intersections would require survey and design that is a little bit more excessive to include ADA mandatory requirements. And so what we had done was we had asked under an existing city contract, we had asked a consultant to take a look and to give us a proposal on what the cost might be to expand the scope of the existing project out a little bit and include those intersections for all that intensive survey and design work. A proposal had come back and needed to be value engineered, but as of last week, the price that mobility is signing off on and that we wanted to propose to you in case you were interested in expanding this project out was roughly $113,000, again, only for survey and design. And that would cover essentially 7th Avenue from 17th to 20th Streets. So 4 intersections total. Yes, go ahead.
Oh, are you finished with it? I don't want to interrupt you.
No, I mean, that's really it. That's really it. It's just an expansion of an existing project. We wanted to make sure that we had those figures ready for you though, for consideration.
So I'm curious, so obviously 16th Street is one intersection we've already gone through. And it is a special intersection because it's a T, the rest of them are actual cross intersections. So what part of like, give me 16th Street as an example, what part of that intersection, which we did go through, wasn't part of our scope? Like I'm confused about what's
already
not.
It was already done.
Yeah.
It was already done. It already,
16th was
yeah,
brick.
16th already had brick crosswalks put in. The ADA was done when we did 13th Street years ago. We built a pedestrian way.
Okay, so there was
that was
no,
different, yeah.
there was no need to actually look at the side, so the scope increases from the street to the sidewalk in essence, to the crosswalk on each side.
Correct.
Is that the extension we're talking about?
Right. So each of these intersections, and all you have to do is drive down here, you'll see that they're all a little bit different.
Yes.
And there's one intersection at 20th Street that the sidewalk, if y'all remember the old medians that used to be on 7th Avenue, it narrows, so it needs to be, what's that?
Bring them back.
Y'all remember those little palm trees in the middle? They're on both sides, and it's a matter of fact, Century Ybor got corrected back then because there used to be a huge palm tree in the middle there and it bowed out. So this would include designing those intersections, and we didn't realize how involved they were until we really got into it. Because if y'all look, the stormwater drains are like lined up where you're supposed to cross over with your handicap. It's all not really correct. So this would provide us that design work so that we can move forward with the project. Now, this is a separate project. It's the intersections. The segments that Nick mentioned, those we can do. The rectangle, the actual street, we can keep doing that. But this is really tying in and creating those intersections.
Okay, makes sense. Thank you. And so then my next question is, if our intention is to brick all the way to 26th Street, why are we doing the intersections only to 20?
That's the cost we have before us today.
Yeah. That was the scope of the project that we've been working with the mobility department so far.
So eventually then, just thinking out loud, we've already done a survey and we know what the streets are all the way out to 26th. But we're going to just do a partial project out to 20th because that's probably the next 2 years worth of work.
Yeah.
And then we'll have to do it again at some point.
We're going to keep going and keep going.
Intersections.
It's going to be a project that's going to be completed over time.
Will those get more expensive to do in the future, or would it make sense to do it all now?
we don't have
We
the
don't have
money
the
to
budget.
do it all now, and we don't have the bricks to do it all now, but we will.
No,
So we
no,
need
no,
to-
I mean like just the
The plan.
design
Yeah,
work, the design work. I
We
mean,
don't, oh, yeah, the
like,
design.
will
work,
that
yeah.
design work get more expensive if we have to do 3 more blocks
We will-
next year? 2 more
We can
blocks a year?
follow up
Yeah,
on that,
Yeah, we can
right?
follow up. Because if
Let's
it's
follow up
cheaper
on
to
that.
just do it all at once, it might
Right.
be worth
Get
doing
all-
it all at once.
Okay.
I think you also have to consider going back, you have to do 15 as well.
Yeah.
That's not right, because then you gotta go
15
the
is
opposite
26,
direction.
yeah.
And we have
Type
that.
of Nuccio too,
And
so,
back to Nuccio.
so, I mean, it's worth considering. Just do it all at once.
If there's an economy of scale there, we should at least consider it. Plus, consultants aren't gonna get cheaper next year or the year after.
As long as the consultants 2 years from now don't say, oh, those plans are out.
Yeah, we have to redo
We're
those.
gonna need to redo those.
Sure.
Where,
So the ask before you today is to approve $113,000 for survey and design services for the segment between 17 to 2000 blocks, the 7th Avenue and 17.
and where's this money coming from in our budget?
This will come under district improvements. That's where it would normally come, and it would, and the reason we're asking you, we do have money in bricking right now, but that's really for the segments. This is we want to identify this as a separate line item because it's a separate contract. So that's why we're coming before y'all, because we don't move anything in the budget unless we talk to y'all about it and make sure you're okay with it.
So is there a reason that, we're just curious, if we go back and say, okay, what would this cost to do the whole thing? So we know that whole, the survey work, what would it cost to do the survey work for all the intersections? If we waited till the next board meeting to look at that cost, does that have an impact, or do we need to approve this 113 now and come back to that later?
I mean-
Just curious if there's a timing thing, is there something?
There is no
that's driving
timing
it?
thing. The way that we're going about this, though, is under an existing city contract with mobility. So what we would go back and do is to see whether or not they have room within that existing contract for us to charge what would be
I see.
twice as much.
So there's also an economy of scale because we're jumping on a contract that already
Yes.
exists. too.
Exactly.
Okay,
Yes.
well, it's good to know.
Exactly. And we will be creating a line item, so every year we can add to that and we'll have, a current cost for doing the next segment. That makes sense.
Do you want to look at just doing like phase 2 of the intersections, which are the remaining in a separate package? Yeah.
Right. Well, we, like in our budget right now, we call it 7th Avenue bricking for the segments. This would be 7th Avenue intersection design work, and yeah.
But if we approve this now, they're going to move forward. We're asking them to not move forward until we find out what it's going to cost to do all.
I know you're asking today to move forward because we want to hop on this city contract to do it. If y'all want to wait, we'll wait till next month, but I mean, we still have to try to do this segment.
And this is just design, survey and design. No actual bricks. That's another.
Because we have a cost
So we still have
estimate
to
for
pay
that.
for it. Yeah, actual bricks, right.
Yeah, because every day we wait, we want to, everyone's been asking, let's do the next 2 blocks. Well, this is part of doing the next 2 blocks. And, we need to get the design work done. We can't.
I'm sorry, I guess I misunderstood. I thought the segment could still be done. It's the intersection that's the issue. You said that the
Well,
segment could be bricked.
The
without this
segment
work.
can be bricked, but it's been highly advisable, especially from historic preservation, to do the intersection at the same time, as close to that time as you can.
Is that even possible? Just curious, because let's say we have our contract to do a segment. And then we get this design, and then it's a separate project, and so a separate contract to do the bricks. Can we actually line that up? Does it work? I mean, you might be,
You
maybe it
can,
is. I don't know.
we did it kind of last time, but we can, we'll probably tie them in at a later date. We'll have to talk to the contractor, depends on who's doing the work.
Yeah, we have like a bid that goes out for both projects, so the contractor just does it all? Is that what?
It probably will be the same
Okay.
contractor doing it. That's the irony of it.
But so we
Don't
don't
we
have
think?
this plan that have be simultaneous. So this one is after the other. So what is the rush or worry about approving this now if they're not going to be simultaneously installed?
They may be.
They may be.
Depends on how how the contract comes back. If they could do it all, or if I have one contract says they can do it all. The biggest inconvenience when you're doing it that way is really it's the MOT. It's routing the traffic around it and so forth. So that's, sometimes in Ybor, the businesses don't want everything closed down at once. Brittany and I were just talking about, you want to do it in little segments. But I think in this case, we're going to do the project. The next phase of this project is 17th to 2020th Street.
Do we have a date
And
for
this-
that or no?
No, because we need to get the design work done on the intersections to have
But
it
you don't
completed.
have to.
You
We
s-
want to.
You have to do it in order to get those in. You have to make the street look all brick.
Well,
What's
So
he saying?
the final deliverable from this is going to produce that permit level, construction level plan that would allow us to bid out for the work. So that would be included in one cost.
so let's just say this, I'd say, if we're going to do the intersections, so let's assume that we want them to be done at the same time. So we want to do this design so that we can do that at the same time and not
Close the streets.
not close the streets twice,
Exactly.
exactly, not close the streets twice, do it all at once. So I think there's value in that in and of itself, in my opinion.
Like a move to approve.
I think someone needs to make a motion.
Make a motion, okay.
There's a second to the motion.
I'll second it.
Any further discussion on said motion? All in favor of said motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Abstain.
One. See, so motion carries.
Okay.
That was not a nay.
No,
Um,
not an A. It was an abstain.
Okay, so let me just count hands of everyone who's voting, just so I have them in the room. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 9, 10. 10. Okay, 10 in favor.
And nobody would
There.
vote no, right? And one abstention.
Okay,
Good. I think that will keep that project moving along. All right, well, thank you, Nick. Appreciate your time. Okay, I guess I'm up.
yeah.
So, let's see.
Do you have anything?
YCDC, hey, if you guys are doing pavers through the YCDC, Joyce is on vacation for a couple of weeks, so if you have any issues or hear of anyone having issues with that, reach out to me, kind of bird dog it, kind of a cruise over in Europe. Good boy. Huh?
Is she coming back or she's?
I don't know, she was just over in Spain for like a month and now this, so, and I'm still trying to get that workshop together, for visioning of the role of YCDC, so, apologize for the tardiness in that one. In your packet here are the projects report.
Yeah, the project report's here, and Nick is still here with us, so if there's any questions about the report that you get every month, that's all the projects that are going on in Ybor 1 and 2.
Can we add back the stormwater drainage improvements? That was supposed to go back on,
Yeah,
just be
that was-
listed.
yes, so talk to Melissa about adding that on. They just don't want to forget about it, because it's a project that
We spent a lot of money to get surveyed and get pricing out, and we just don't have the money to complete the project, but don't want to forget about it.
Okay.
all right.
You know, that line item 5 for the bus stops, that's gonna be kind of put on hold
So
there.
that's gonna go on hold, correct? And just so you know, out of that 240, you only put 100,000 into Ybor, only in Ybor 1. We're one of the only series that did it, so that'll get reprogrammed, so that'll go away for now.
And see, grants are listed in here, and you guys were very active with Fiesta Day, having
So
publications.
yesterday was, yes, very successful. That's in my report, but I can just mention it because it ties into the grants. So a couple of things, you have your grants here that these are active projects or they're leads, or they've had interactions with our grants team on the commercial grants that are available. And then we also have housing. There has not been a lot of housing applications. And I know I ran into Carolyn at Fiesta Day, and I've ran into a lot of y'all at Fiesta Day. It was wonderful. We had a lot of people come up to our booth, and we had I actually printed out the housing flyers over here. The grants flyers are on our website. The housing flyers are too, but I just made it really easy because people wanted those specifically. but to please to try to get these programs out to your community, your neighbors, feel someone could be suitable for assistance with their home, everything from an exterior renovation or roofs or whatever's happening to also down payment assistance. So I have them on the table back there for the housing programs. But yeah, Fiesta Day was fantastic. Thank you, Lee Bell. And our Yes team helped too. It was really a wonderful day. Somehow they held back the rain, which was amazing because I did feel a drizzle, but I don't know what they did. They just waved their hands and it went away. But it was fantastic. And, anytime we have an opportunity to do an outreach opportunity to get out to the community, I love doing that, and sharing what we do here with, and the good work that y'all do as well. So it was a good day. If we're still on me real quick, CAC orientation, we have an annual orientation for all new members. I know that Manny just skipped out, but I think I sent it to everybody. It'll be in this room. It'll be on March 10th. We did it here last year. We did 2 last year. This year, we're going to do 1. It's for the new members, but anyone is welcome to come. I just won't give you a brand new binder like last year because I have your name that you signed that you got a binder. But we will give you new inserts, okay, to your binder. So if you're available and you'd like to come by and be a part of that orientation and training, you're more than welcome. And that's all I have.
Any new business anyone wants to discuss? Any announcements? Mr. Yeah, I think we're done then today. So we'll see everyone next Tuesday, March 25th. CRA board meeting is March 13th. Big spring break in between there.
Happy St. Patrick's Day.
Happy St. Patrick's Day. Yeah, see no more business. We are adjourned. Thank you all. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks. Good dialogue.
What pot did the heart honey get from?
From